Chaim. Good Yontif.
Yeah.
I did it Allah, I did it Allah, I did it Allah, ma. I did it Allah, ma, la.
متى نختم ودوش؟ نشأتي لك عشان قودة.
يا لا It's on the website, it's live and COL, it's live
Kislev.
No, ich kenne es, ich kann es. Ich leid mal gesund, ich kenne es. Ich kann gar nicht verstehen. I'm not happy about it. Okay, L'chaim Yidden, join me in raising your cups and saying L'chaim on this holy day, together with thousands of Yidden around the entire world. Yidden these days, Yidden in past times, and Jews even in times that it was very dangerous. During difficult times, they still gather together, Yotas Kislev. Now I want to tell you, L'chaim, L'chaim.
Take that chair. Take that chair. Put it on the side so it doesn't get in the camera.
I want to tell you, I want to begin by sharing with you that a number of years ago, it was a Shabbos morning, a winter Shabbos morning. I was a bacher in yeshiva, 770. Of course, Shabbos morning, before davening, you learn Chassidus, the minig, in Chaim Mimim in Lubavitch, that before davening, especially Shabbos, you learn Chassidus. And as I was sitting there learning with a chavrus of mine, a maimer, an elderly man walked into shul amongst the bacher, and he asked me if he could join us in learning. I said, for sure. And he sat down and he joined us. I thought he would just sit down quietly and let us continue learning and just sit there and listen. We're yeshiva students, yeshiva bachrim, talmidei yeshiva. But after a few silent moments, he interrupted us. He stopped the learning, and he said, "What does this mean? What the words you just read? What does it mean?" And then a few lines later, he stopped us again. He said, "What does this mean? What do these words mean?" And this kept on happening. Initially, I thought it was just one question. And he kept on asking and stopping us and interrupting us. But it wasn't questions like deep questions, iyumdike questions, lamdis. It seemed to be very petty, very technical. He was gribbling, he was nitpicking, taking apart words. What's the difference between this word and that word? And when we finished learning, I turned to him, I said, tell me. He was much older than me. I said, when you were my age, younger, when you were a Talmud in yeshiva, this is how they taught you to learn? This is how I've never learned like that. You learn, you try to understand what it's talking about, but to nitpick every word. And I said, this is how they taught you to learn? So he answered me. He said, when I was in yeshiva, we didn't learn. We didn't learn at all. In my times, we couldn't learn. You see, my friends, he was in yeshiva, unlike myself, yeshiva in New York, in America. He was in yeshiva in Stalinist Russia. He said, in my time, it was very difficult to learn. They hounded us. We would learn in a Ezras Nashim of an abandoned shul where nobody was during the week. Eventually, we were discovered. We knew they were going to come looking for us. So we had to run away to find a new place to establish the yeshiva. Could you imagine a yeshiva that every few weeks has to pack up and reestablish himself somewhere else? The pizur nefesh, the lack of menucha, the lack of yishuv adas. He said, when we were in yeshiva, we couldn't learn. He tells me a few years later, things got a little better in the Soviet Union. He started telling me names, this one, that one. They were already able to learn. He says, in my times, we couldn't learn. I said, so what did you do in yeshiva if you didn't learn? My friends, that's like saying there's a restaurant that doesn't serve food. A yeshiva where you don't learn. What? A bakery that doesn't bake bread. A yeshiva doesn't learn. I said, what did you do if you couldn't learn? That means, what did they do when they couldn't learn? When at night they were trembling, afraid of when are they going to hear somebody opening the door. When they couldn't learn because they didn't know who's going to be arrested next. when they didn't learn because they didn't know where else can they run to, where else can they hide. That's why they couldn't learn. Of course they wanted to learn. They didn't have the focus, they didn't have the serenity, the peace. I said, so what do you do in yeshiva if you didn't learn? What are you doing in yeshiva if you don't learn? He tells me, when we were in yeshiva, when we couldn't learn, we used to Farbrengen. What we're doing here tonight. He said, we used to sit together with the mashpia, and we used to Farbrengen. Farbrengen, Monday night, Wednesday night. When we couldn't learn, we used to Farbrengen. Hold strong, say Chaim, Farbrengen together. I said, well, what is there to Farbrengen about so much? I mean, how much can you Farbrengen? If there's nothing of substance to hold it together. He tells me, let me tell you what we used to Farbrengen when we were in yeshiva. You know, at that moment, my friends, it was time for Shachris to start. This was already after the learning. The Chazan finished saying Rabbi Yishmael, Shibana Beis HaMikdash, and this individual stood up to say Kaddish. Really, what should have happened is he finished Kaddish, we started davening, but I wasn't ready to daven. He left me hanging. So when he finished Kaddish, I said, you were about to tell me, what did you? And we continued to talk. And he told me the following. He said, I'll tell you one episode. And this is an example, and from here you'll learn for all the other nights. He says, there was one night, the mashpia that at that time was the famous Chassid of Mendel Futterfass, was our mashpia. He said there was one night, he wasn't in the yeshiva, and he came back late at night, he gathered us together, he sat us down, and he told us the following. He said, I was just taken for questioning by the Soviet authorities, by the police. What did they question him? They asked him the following question. They presented themselves as university professors. Two well-dressed individuals, tailored suits, fine silk ties. They wore gold cufflinks. And they said to him, we are in charge of a Judaica department in the university. And one of us, one said, pointing to his colleague, specializes in the study of Hasidism. And we have a question as a part, as a member of the Hasidic community. We want to ask you the following question. We've done our research. You know, professors do research. We've done our studies. We looked throughout the Soviet Union and we found something remarkable. They told him, and he repeated to the Talmidim that night. They said, we found there are cities in Russia, there are cities in the Soviet Union, where you have great Rabbonim, old Rabbonim, Talmidei Chachamim, long white beards. They sit with the Gemaras, and they harave Yomam V'Layla. You know, the old Shas Gemaras. It's based on the ambience here. I feel like it would be here. The old big Gemaras, not like they make them now. You know what I'm talking about. The heavy Gemaras. Big, yellow pages. Sitting and learning. The Rav sits with the Gemara, well-worn pages and Masechtas of Shas. And while the Rav is sitting and learning, doing what a Rav does, they said the communists come in, they shut the schools, they close down the chadarim, they stuff the mikvahs, they take the kids who learned in cheder and they put them in communist schools. They had special youth programs for the children where they would be indoctrinated with communist beliefs and ideologies and philosophies, of course atheistic. And all the while the Rav is sitting and learning Gemara. And from the city, in a short time, there's nothing left. It's a churban, nothing. It's all done. Yiddishkeit is completely uprooted and destroyed. They said, but then we found something remarkable, counterintuitive. We want you to explain it to us. There are other communities in this vast country where there is no old Rav. There's a little bit of Yiddishkeit. There's nothing there, no Yiddishkeit. And one day, and my friends, I'm repeating to you the words he told me. He said it to me in Yiddish, I'm translating it into English. One day a young chassid walks in. A junge chassidl, he said. Often they don't even have a beard yet. Just a few hairs, a few facial hairs. They're so young, they don't even have full beards. Not white beards like the great Rabbonim, elder Rabbonim. Not even full beards like Jungelite. He said, apar haralach, a few hairs on their face. Young men. Today we'd call them boys. They come into the city that has nothing, and overnight there's chaos. Suddenly there's children being gathered together that are once again sitting with a melamed to teach them Kometz Alafah, Bereishis Bar Elikim, Anoichi Hashem Elikecha, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elikeinu Hashem Echad. A short time goes by, somewhere, somehow, there's a mikveh that's reopened. Jewish woman can go to the mikveh again. Yiddishkeit begins to sprout, begins to flourish, and begins to blossom. Reb Mendel said, they looked at him and they said, we don't understand. How could it be that on one hand you have cities with old great Rabbanim, where the communists are able to do what they want, all the while the Rav is still sitting with the Gemara. And here you have other cities, young yeshiva students come in, Hasidic yeshiva students, the students of Tamim Chitmimim, the students that learn Chassidus, the students that learn the teachings of the Balatanya, the Shulchan Aruch, the Rav, the Alter Rebbe, for whose simcha we're gathered here tonight. And they come in where there is no Rav and there is no Rabbinat. There are no big Gemaris. And somehow they have that koyach to transform the city entirely, yesh ma'ayim, to come into a place where there's a midbar shmama in Yiddishkeit, and suddenly Yiddishkeit begins to flourish. And they said to him that night, they said, tell us, what is the secret? And my friends, I repeat you the words that this Yid told me, that were the words that Mendel told him that night, what he heard from these people. They said, tell us, what is the secret from their atomic energia, is what he told me that Shabbos morning, of this atomic energy. And was Chassidus vermochten sich, that Chassidus has in it. They asked him, what is the secret of this atomic energy? Atomic energy, that was the big word back 50, 60, 70 years ago. What is the secret of this atomic energy? That a young chassid can come into a city that has nothing and create something from nothing. Yesh Mayim, atomic energy. What is the secret that Chassidus has in it? We are professors of Chassidism and we want to understand. We're asking a chassid because we can't figure out this enigma. We're mystified. We can't figure it out. So all the Talmidim are sitting and listening, and they looked at Reb Mendel. No. So what did you answer the professors? He said, of course I didn't answer them. Of course I didn't answer them. They weren't professors. They were police. They were investigators for the Gapo, NKVD. He said, how'd you know? He said, because in Russia at that time, nobody had a tailored suit. Nobody dressed like a mensch. Nobody had money for clothing. If anybody dressed like a mensch, you knew he was working for the government. No professor looked like that. He said they were police. There was nobody to talk to. They were just trying to squeeze out information. It was just another tactic. They tried like this, they tried like that. He said, but Reb Mendel Farbrengen with us the whole night. That's a night I will never forget the rest of my life. The entire night we Talmidim sat with him. In the dark, decrepit Ezras Nashim. Without, where the windows were boarded. So no noise can escape. So no unwanted guests will come in. And he spoke to us at night. They couldn't learn properly during the day, the way we're able to learn today. Harav and Harashba, Bimesamek and Atoisvis, Hamaram Shif, Hamaram Shik, Rishonim, Achroinim, Poskim. They learned. How much can you learn when your life's on the line? When you don't know when you're going to be arrested? You learn. He said, but the whole night he sat with us. And he said, these godless atheists, the communists themselves have realized that Chassidus is atomic energy. No, what are we waiting for? When are we going to realize the koyach that the Alter Rebbe gave us, the power that the Balatanya infused us with through his Torah? He said that's what he spoke to us a whole night. Children, realize what we have. It is priceless and precious. The goy who hates God himself recognized that there's something here. There's something unexplainable. There's something different. There's something unique. No, what are we waiting for? My friends, we're gathered here tonight. This is the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe Simcha. This is the Torah of the Alter Rebbe. I'm not telling you a theory. I'm telling you something that happened. What the person told me that Shabbos morning. My friends, he never forgot that night, and I never forgot that Shabbos morning. It was just a regular Shabbos morning, a winter Shabbos morning, but it wasn't, because I heard something firsthand. It's different. My friends, raise your cup, say Chaim, it's Yutas Kislev. It's a great simcha. The Alter Rebbe said, whoever rejoices in my simcha, whoever participates in my simcha, whoever holds on to my doorknob, whoever connects to my ways, I will schlep him out from his constraints, from his gehenim, from his place where he's stuck, and bring him el merchav, bring him el amnucha vel anachla. It's a great day. It's a great day. L'chaim, my friends. L'chaim. 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 Please join me. I let it la la la, ma la la la, ma let it la 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 la. La 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 la, ma la 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 la. La 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 la, ma la la la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 ma. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 ma 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 ma. Ah la 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 ma la 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 ma la la la. Ya ma 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 la 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 ma la 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 ya la 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 la. Hey la 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 ma la 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 la. Ah la la ma la 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 ma. Ah la 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 ma la 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 la. Ah la 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 ma. Ya la la. Ah la 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 la. La 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 la. Hey la. Hey la 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 la. La 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 la. Ah la 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 ma la la la. Ah la 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 la. La 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 la. Ah la la la. Ah la la la. No, my friends. Ah la 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 la. Ah la 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 la. Give me a hand. I can't walk. My foot's broken, but give me a hand. Ah la la. Ah la 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 la. La 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 la. La la ma la. What should I do? La 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 la. La 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 la. In the ladies section. La la, hey, la 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 la. Hey, ma 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 la 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 la. Hey, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 ma la 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 ma la 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 ma la 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 ay 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 la 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 la. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim Yidin, l'chaim, l'chaim. He left me, he didn't explain what is the atomic energy of Chassidus. It's a rhetorical question, it's a statement, it's an exclamation. But I think, my friends, you know what the Gemara says, that every person when they pass away, there's questions that they're asked when they come Lamaila, when they come to Shemayim above. There's questions every person is asked. The Gemara says, did you await Mashiach, Tzipisi Yeshua? Right? You remember? Kavate itim l'Torah. Did you learn Torah every day? Parak echad shachris u'parak echad arvis. Hayid has to learn Torah. Nososov and Nosata be'emunah. Did you deal in all your business dealings honestly? With ehrlichkeit? Were you honest in business? Did you cheat? Did you swindle? Did you lie? Or were you always straight? According to Torah, Shulchan Aruch. A Yid who believes in the Eibishter doesn't need to cheat. He knows everything comes from Hashem anyways. The Gemara says that everything a person earns throughout the year is k'tsuv alai mi Rosh Hashanah vad Yom Kippurim. It's set aside from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur. You can't beat the system. Everything is set. Everything that's meant for you, you're going to get. What's not meant for you, you're not going to get. These are the questions they ask a person. But you know, by Chassidim, they translated one of the questions differently. Because when you read the Gemara literally, two of the questions are Ruchnius, one of the questions is Gashmius. The question, did you await Mashiach, is a spiritual question. Kavata itim l'Torah, did you learn Torah every day, is also, it's Avodas Hashem, it's Ruchnius. Nososov and Nosata be'emunah, did you deal with business? Honestly, is a physical question. Of course, it's Torah, but it's something you do physically, with your material dealings, not with your learning, with your business, with your uvdim dechoil, with your kol drochecho. But by Chassidim, from the great rabbis in Lechovitch, they translated even this question about business as a spiritual question. They saw a depth in this question beyond the pshat of the Gemara. Nososov and Nosata be'emunah, they asked. How was your emunah? What type of emunah did you have? You know, they say there was a Rebbe, the Bluzhever Rebbe, was once sitting at a tish, and in the middle of the tish he started to smile, he laughed, and he mumbled, it's Satem Gelungen, Satem Gelungen. The Chassidim were mystified, they had no idea what he was talking about. In the middle of a tish. So afterwards he explained what happened. He said, do you remember Moshe? Moshe that just passed away, we just had the Levaya. You know that Moshe for 55 years, he would put on his talis in the morning, he would not say a word until he took off his talis to put it away in the zekel. He never spoke a word besides davening and learning in the talis. You know why? He always said, this Moshe always said, he was a clever man. He said, one day I'm going to come to heaven, like every other person, like everybody else. Everybody ends up there. One day I'm going to come there. And I'm going to be asked the questions that everybody is asked. I don't know the truth, if I'm going to be able to answer. I was always honest in business. I did everything 100%. I always learned Torah. I always awaited Mashiach. When I had everything, who can, over there, this is Amud Kshait, it's the world of truth. Over there you can't for you can't say something not true. There's no lies over there. I don't know when he put on his talis for 55 years, he never spoke a word. He said, you know what I'm going to do when I'm going to come to heaven? I'm going to come there, I'm going to pass away, I'm going to come to the gates, they're going to start asking me the questions. I'm going to be wearing a talis, like every Jew. I'm going to say, I'm going to point at my talis. After 55 years, I never spoke a word in a talis. I'm not going to speak now either. The Bluzhever Rebbe said, I was sitting by the tish and I watched how he came up there. They asked him the questions. He said, talis, He said, Satem Gelungen. They let him right through. They waved him right through. He was a smart man. By Chassidim, they touch this question of Sosav and Asata B'Emunah differently. No, Sosav and Asata B'Emunah, what type of Emunah did you have? How real was your Emunah? Was it Emunah you say, Baruch Hashem, Emir Hashem, it's just something you say. It's something you believe in. But the problem is, a Ganev also has Emunah. You know, the Gemara says, Ganva lepum machtarta rachmona karya. The Gemara says. What does that mean? A Ganev lepum machtarta. At the time of the Geneva, he's trying to rob. And what happens? He trips the alarm by mistake. The thief tripped the alarm. What he says, oh my God, God help me. Rachmona karya. He calls out to the Eibishter. He's lying. He doesn't believe at that moment. People say he's a hypocrite. He claims to be a religious Jew, but he was found guilty in court for swindling. See, he's a liar. He's not a Yidam Maimin. His emunah was fake, was just a show. So then why does the Ganef say a prayer even when nobody hears him? Like the Gemara says. Of course the emunah is real. Yidin are maminim b'nei maminim. There's nothing we can do about it. We're stuck. It's who we are. We have an neshama. Achelik elikami mamish, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya Perek Beis. And then we have a neshama, which is part of the Eibishter and always connected to the Eibishter. So the neshama believes. What does it mean, belief? It's part of the Eibishter. It can't not believe. But what's the problem? Sometimes you can have emunah, but it doesn't change you. It doesn't change who you are. Meaning, it doesn't change your actions. Because the emunah comes from the neshama. Your stealing comes from the guf, from your body. So you're a complex person. You're complicated. There's two people in one. You have a body and you have a soul. Who believes? The neshama. Emunah is a reflection of the neshama. When your yid has a neshama, the neshama feels the Eibishter because it's connected to the Eibishter. So when that feeling is within a person, the person believes. On the other hand, the body has its desires. So the body can do things that are not 100%, that are wrong. Now, Sosov and Asata b'emunah is the question, what did you do with the emunah? The emunah is given to you when you're born. The neshama is given to you. Elekai neshama shenosato bi tahira. He gave you the pure neshama. But what did you do with the neshama? You just left it as it is? Or Nososov and Asata b'emunah. You took emunah and you delved into it. You dealt with it. You learned it. You studied it. You are misamek in it. It's a sugya. Like every other sugya. You learn Hilchos Shabbos. You learn other halachas, other sugyas, nososov and nosata. When you learn a sugya, you're noisav and noitin in the sugya. When it comes to emunah, they ask a yid, what did you do with your emunah? You left it the way it was. Then ganva lapom achtarta rachmana kaya rachmana litzlan. A ganev also has emunah. A yid abalaveir also has emunah. Or nososov and nosata, you dealt with emunah. You dwelt in tashgocha pratis. You studied what it means. V'yidaita ayoyim v'shaveisal v'vadecha. Ki Hashem hu elikim b'shamayim mimal v'la'oretz mitochas ein oid. The emunah that there is nothing else except Hashem. Not just no other gods. But there is no other existence. And everything that happens, every footstep of a person is ordained by the Eibishter. You can't run away from him, you can't hide from him. And if you go here, in the end his plan happens anyways. And everything's a bashgacha pratis. But it's easy to say. But to actually internalize this, to learn it, to study it, these are the teachings of Chassidus. This is the emunah, the koyach, that the Baal Shem Tov and subsequently the Maggid, whose yahrzeit is today, Yotas Kislev, and the Alter Rebbe, they taught and they explained, they elaborated. And this is what the Alter Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh for. Why he went to prison. Of course he went to prison because of a physical cause. And his life was in danger because in Tsarist Russia, the turn of the 19th century, you died for that. Because even in the 20th century, you died. When you were charged as a counter-revolutionary, you were killed. And there was a physical ness that his life was saved. And that's a tremendous simcha. But there's a greater idea over here. Because Tayyid, nothing is just a physical story. The Alter Rebbe said there was a kitrug. He taught too much, he spoke too much. And he thought maybe to hold back. And he came out of prison. That meant no, on the contrary. The Gzeira was abolished. The Gzeira was nisbatel. And they said, not only you shouldn't stop teaching these teachings of Nososov and Nosata b'emunah, you should continue and teach it and teach it. He had Mesiras Nefesh for it. And why do you have to teach it so much? So that there should be a Jew like me or like you, a person of flesh and blood, who's living in 2018, in the 21st century, today, surrounded by nisyonos that even a few decades ago were unimaginable. And today, such a Jew can open up a Lakutei Torah, a Torah Or, a Tanya, a Shar Yichud V'Emunah, and learn it, and be uplifted through it, be inspired by it, and be transformed through it. And he wanted to make sure that we would also understand it. And thus he taught, and he explained, and he did it until his last breath, until he couldn't anymore. And you hear in this beautiful Heichal of Baal Shem Tov, all the Sfarim, the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe, and subsequent Abbeim that explained, elaborated, and elucidated what do they want. That emunah should be real by Yid. I want to tell you, my friends, I heard this from a person firsthand. His name is Rabbi Alter Metzger. Many of you know him. He told me that he went to Russia. He was from the people that went to Russia before the Iron Curtain fell. And he was in shul. You couldn't talk to anybody because they followed every move, every conversation, and every interaction. There were chassidim in the shul, there were other yidden in the shul, but you couldn't approach anybody. He said when it came, you have a siddur over here. You have a siddur over here. He said when it came time for Kriyas HaTorah. Give me a siddur. When it came time for Kriyas HaTorah, you open up the Arna Kodesh. This doesn't have Brich Shmei. You open the Arna Kodesh, and every shul you say Brich Shmei, Vayhi ben Soya, and everybody mumbles Brich Shmei. Yeah, that's the minhag. Until the Chazan finishes and says, yeah. He said, in the shul, when he read Brich Shmei, something remarkable happened that he never witnessed all the years before, that he never witnessed after in America. There was a Jew in shul that when you say in Brich Shmei, Elo b'lekodesh shmaya, we talk about Hashem. Duhu elekok kshoit. What does the word kshoit mean? Emes, truth. He said the Jew gave a scream when he read the word kshoit, as if somebody was choking him. Bechol nimei nafshoy. Kshoit! He screamed with all his koyach. V'iraiso kshoit. Univiyohi kshoit. Umaski lemeva tavenu kshoit. Every time he said the word kshoit, he gave a scream. Not because the decibels were very loud, but you saw was with every fiber of his being, his entire neshama came out. Kshoit, kshoit. He would have loved to go over and ask this Jew what his story is, but he couldn't. But on the way out of shul, the person was leaving, he was standing, and the person walked by him. As the person walked by him, Reb Alter said, kshoit. The Jew from America said, kshoit. To this one that Bekriyas HaTorah screamed. And without stopping, and without making eye contact, because every interaction was recorded by people there. Every shul had somebody whose job was to see who talks to the tourists. The tourists went to be mechazik Yiddishkeit, they had to be very careful. Without any eye contact, he mumbled kshoit, and the person, without slowing down as he continued walking, said in Yiddish, Chotch eina versteht. That was his response.
What's English?
Chotch eina versteht. One person understands. Thank God there's one person who understands. That's what he responded. He said to him, kshoit, because that was what he was screaming. This was his language, the coded language. And the person responded, Chotch eina versteht. One person understands. In other words, you got it. He couldn't even ask the person his name. There were chassidim that lived in Russia anonymously for years. Some of them died there. Some they even found, when communism fell, they found some. Chotch eina versteht. Somebody once asked me, what does that mean? I said, I don't even know, but I heard it, and it. Chotch eina versteht. What does it mean when he told him Chassidus is atomic energy? Why am I telling you about Soviet Union? It's gone, it's out of existence. I'll tell you why I'm telling you that. You know, the pasuk says, Lahagid ba'boiker chazdecho. Everybody says it every day. A Yid once told me, he said, notice in the pasuk, it's out of order. It should say, Lahagid ba'boiker chazdecho u'baleilos emunasecho. In the morning we sing your praises, and at night we sing or exclaim our faith in the Eibishter, our Amunah. It doesn't say that. It says, Lahagid ba'boiker chazdecho. It doesn't say ubaleilos u'munasecho. It says b'munascha baleilos. And the Yid told me he was going through a terrible tzara. He said, I'll tell you what it means, not because I saw it anywhere or heard it anywhere. I know it from my heart. I know it from my neshama. Lahagid ba'boiker chazdecho. When things are good, boiker is when it's light. When there's light, when there's clarity, when there's warmth, when there's peace, when there's yishuv adas, ba'boiker. Chazdecha, of course we sing the praises of the Eibishter. Baruch Hashem, you say, Ashgacha Pratis, look, it all worked out. Ashgacha Pratis, the Yad Hashem, you sing, you only have what to say. But Baleilois, when it's dark, when you don't have that clarity, when you don't have that sense of direction, of purpose, when you're confused, when there's no way out, when Jews lived in hell, or when a Yid today has an Isayim, Baleilois, when it's dark, when it's dark, it doesn't come naturally to sing the emunah, to exclaim, Hashem echad u'shma echad, hu levadi hu vein zelasai. No, not at all. At that time, that's when the Yetzer Hara challenges a person. That's when the men are separated from the boys. That's when you see who the real person is. If it's a person, the emunoscha, who him in his life was nasasav and nasate be'emunah. Emunah wasn't just what he said when it's convenient and it's easy and it doesn't cost any money. When things are good, when it doesn't, big deal, a cheder, a yeshiva, a mikveh, what does it cost? A few dollars. What's the cost in life? But ve'emunascha, only a person that by him emunah is real. A person that learns and understands what the Alter Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh for us, because we're the Dor today that learns his Torah. People that were. But in the present, it's us, and our children and grandchildren. Those are the people that are here now. Right now, the flag was passed to us. The emunascha, when the emunah by us is real, the emunah of hu levade hu vein zelasai, that emes Hashem lo'ilam, emes havai lo'ilam, that all there is the Eibishter. And what is the rest of the world? If all there is the rest is the Eibishter, einoid mavadoi. But not something you say. It's something that's nasasav and nasato. You're noisav and noitzim. It's something you learn. It's something you study. It's something you open the drushes, the maimorim of the Alter Rebbe. And the subsequent Rabbeim who explained it. So you can understand what it means. Not just say it in emunah, like I said, because then the Ganav also has emunah. But you can understand it so that it's internalized, so that it transforms you. So that when you have an Nisayin, the Ganav is the person who has the Nisayin who falls through. Because by him is Baleilis emunosecho. But when the emunah is strong, ve'emunascha baleilois. Even when a person has a Yetzer Hara, even when a person has an Isayim, then he has the koyach to remain strong. And this is what the Alter Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh for. The Baal Shem Tov taught Yidden this emes. But the Alter Rebbe said, it's not enough, the emunah is not enough. And it's not enough that there are tzaddikim that understand it. Every single Yid has an neshama. Every single Yid is a chelik elikam. Not only tzaddikim are chelik elikam imal. Every Yid, a kal shebekalam is a chelik elikam imal. And thus every single Yid has the capacity for his emunah to shine and to transform him and to permeate him and to change his life. Begashmias in this world. Not just in moments of emunah. Baboiker chazdecha. But at night, be'emunoscha. Baleilois. In the leilois, every Yid has the capacity. In his internal laila and darkness that every person has, the Choshech HaYetzer Hara, the Choshech of the Nefesh HaBahamis, to transform that into light. This is the koyach the Alter Rebbe gave. Kshoit. Because it's emes. And emes havaya lo'ilam. And the truth of the Eibishter is always lo'ilam. Lo'ilam. Ma'oilam v'adoilam atokel. Ma'oilam adoilam. From the hidden worlds, the great spiritual worlds, the worlds of godliness. It says in Chassidus, Ma'alma deskasya ad alma desgalya. In the words of the Zohar, Ma'oilam adoilam atokel. The truth of the Eibishter is Ma'oilam, but ad oilam. Till the lowest world, that there is nothing lower. Till the greatest darkness, over there. Over there, it's also atokel. You are the Eibishter. Atokel mistater. But a Yid who's noisav and noisim be'emunah, to him the emunah is real, and he learns the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, and he studies the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, and that's what this moised was created for. Such a Yid has a koyach that baleilas, and thus I tell you, my Rabbi said this is a historical fact. There's individual leilas, everybody knows how he deals with it. But in times of our history, when there were collective leilos, when there were time periods, years, decades of collective darkness, when Yidden had no light and they saw no way out, everybody saw that it was the Yidden that by them, be'emunascha, that they were noisav and noisim be'emunah, they were the ones that remained stanch baleilos. And we need to be the ones, now, we're alive here, Now it's individual. It's not collective. Everybody has his Yetzaharas. Everybody has his distractions, his challenges, the things that cause him anxiety, the things that cause him stress, the things that hold him back, the things that impede us from our Avodas Hashem. We have to hold on to we have a schus to gather here in Yutas Kislev, the Alter Rebbe's great day, when this light was revealed, the physicalness and the ruchnis dikenes, that in Shemaim they said, you could teach Yidden. You could teach every single Yid who opens a sefer that his emunah should be nischazik. Rabbi say, "Schusoy yogin aleinu" means not just that we should be benched in his merit, but schusoy, the deeper taich, zachusoy, zachus, his refinement, his light, his koyach, what he accomplished. Yogin should affect us, should refine us, should uplift us. Schuse yogin aleinu. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Nigun.
You're welcome.
Super obvious. Just thought of it today.
It's a good question. La 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 ma 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 la 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 ya 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 la 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 ma la 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 ma ma la 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 ma ma la 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 ma la la ma la 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 ma la 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 ya 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 la 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 ma la la ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 mama la 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 mama la 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 ya la 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 ma la ma la 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 ma la 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 la.
Maya, Maya.
Ah, la 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 la. Ma la 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 la.
Ya la ya la la ya.
La 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 la. I want to tell you, speaking about Emunah, there was a Jew. This was, I believe, in 1956. There was a bocher from Israel, a Ger Chassid, staying at his grandmother on Eastern Parkway, apartment. And thus he would walk into Lubavitch, across the street, 770 Eastern Parkway, time to time. Used to send him to attend the Farbrengen. And there was one Farbrengen, he happened to be there, and he heard somebody from Crown Heights going over to the Rebbe and asking the Rebbe a bracha for Parnasa. Not for himself, the person asked for a friend of his. Somebody asked the Rebbe a bracha for that his friend should have Parnasa. And what happened immediately thereafter was remarkable and left a lifelong impact on this bocher that changed his life entirely. This Ger Chassid, whose name was Rotberg. The Rebbe responded, the Rebbe retorted very strongly, very adamantly, very passionately out loud with the following. He said, tell him he should stop borrowing money from people. Pay back whatever he owes to them. Tell him to pay back all the money he owes people. And he should stop borrowing money from people. And then the Eibishter will give him everything he needs. That was the Rebbe's response. He went over just to ask, this Yid went over just to ask a bracha parnasa, that Ploini should have parnasa. And the Rebbe's answer, completely unanticipated by him, he was shocked. Tell him to pay back all the money he owes people. He should stop borrowing money from people. The Eibishter will then give him whatever he needs. And this bocher, who happened from Eretz Yisrael, who was staying by his grandmother, heard that in his formative years, and it left a tremendous impact on him. He was completely taken by the words. The way the Rebbe said so staunchly that if he does that, we say in benching, don't make us dependent, but the way the Rebbe said it with such a munah, with such clarity, and then the Eibishter will give him whatever he needs. At that moment he resolved that come what may, he will never be a person that borrows money from people. You have people that Nabach, they live this lifestyle. So in Eretz Yisrael it's very prevalent. They go from gemach to gemach. They borrow here to pay back there, they pay back there. Unhealthy debt, we call it. Always borrowing and this. I'm talking about a mortgage, a house. But unhealthy debt, always borrowing to pay, to this, to that. It's not a healthy lifestyle. It's not normal. It's not healthy. It's not the way it's meant to be. And he decided he's not going to live that way. And it had such an impact. It wasn't just something he resolved then. He eventually went back to Eretz Yisrael. He got married. He raised a family. This became a lifelong principle for him. You spend what you have. You don't spend what you don't have. And you don't borrow money from people. The Eibishter has enough to give each person what he needs. I mentioned what the Gemara says from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippurim. We daven every day. Baruch Aleinu. The Eibishter has a cheshbon for each person. You don't need to beat the system because you can't beat the system. Hakol b'dei shamayim, chutz miyiras shamayim. And he lived this way with Emunah. You know, when it came time to marry off his children, being that he was a Ger Chassid, in Ger, they have a system for the Kehillah, for the Ger Chassidim, a system of like interest-free loans to help you marry off your children, with a payment plan that they pay over a certain amount of years. It's a built-in system to the Chassidus to help Chassidim marry off their children. So you don't have to start running around like a person that, with dignity, with something everybody does. But he was different. Because when he was a young man, he heard these words from the Rebbe himself. You know, in Hilchos Shabbos, Klirishon Mevashal, something hot, you hear it. He was a different person because of it. And he said, it's not easy to marry off of children and have all the money, everybody knows, have all the money you need, but he doesn't borrow money, period. He married off another child. He married off all his children this way. And people would always tell him, you know, why mutsha, why live? He said, I don't borrow money from people, because he heard the words from the Rebbe himself. Tell him to pay back. Don't borrow money. The Eibishter will give whatever he needs. It came time to marry off his last child, his Ben Skunim. He was already not a young man. And this time, he really had no money. After the expenses of marrying off all his children and setting them all up, he really had no money left. And his good friend said to him, why are you even worried how you're going to pay for the wedding and setting up the young couple? There's no reason to worry. We have a system we have a free loan society in the Kehillah to help for precisely this reason. He said, I don't take loans. The Eibishter will help. And the couple was engaged. And he kept on saying, the Eibishter will help. It came the day before the wedding. He had a pit in the bottom of his stomach. The feeling of dread when the inevitable is going to happen. Because tomorrow was the wedding. Tomorrow he had to pay the caterer, the photographer, the florist. He had no money with which to pay. He had no way to pay for the wedding. And he didn't know what's going to be. And there was this voice in him that said, so just take the loan. You'll pay it back. You'll continue working. You'll pay it back. But there was another voice, even stronger, that said, you heard the words from the Nasi B'Yisrael, from the Rebbe. You heard the Rebbe saying in 1956 to somebody. It wasn't him. It wasn't about him. He was a bacher. He was just a bystander. You heard, and that image of the Rebbe's face, and the way the Rebbe said those words, he said, I can't do it. I've lived my entire life this way. I can't do it. In Ger, the morning of the wedding, there's a minig. The chassan puts on a spadik already in the morning. And also the father of the chassan. The father and the son both wear bigdei Shabbos, what they're going to wear for the wedding, already to Shachris. That's the minig in Ger. Usually you put it on by the wedding in many places, the Shabbos clothing. In Ger they put it on already. They go to daven Shachris in the wedding clothing. And thus he set out on the day of the wedding with this weight on his mind, pressing on him. He set out to Shachris and a spadik, with his son, the chassan, and the spadik. His mind was racing. And on the street, they were going to the Belzer Shtibel, the city where they lived, to daven. On the street, somebody stopped him. A person stopped him and said, Yid, you're making chasana, right? He says, yes. Maybe you need money to make the wedding? Because if you do, I have money for you. He said, what? What? This person, his name was Rabbi Moshe Yaroslavsky. And the person said, I have money for you from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said, what are you talking about? And Rabbi Moshe Yaroslavsky said to him, I just came back from New York. I just flew. I just came. And I was in Yechidus by the Rebbe before I left. I had my regular Yechidus. And at the end of the Yechidus, the Rebbe opened up his drawer. He took out a wad of bills. He handed it to me, and he said, you're fartach in Eretz Yisrael, you're going back to Eretz Yisrael. Maybe you will see a Yid going to make a wedding, who's going to need the money to pay for the wedding. Give it to that Yid. He said, I literally just left my house, my first morning here, with the money in my pocket. Because the Rebbe said, you're going to go out, you're going to meet a Yid, and you're going to give him the money. The person was flabbergasted. This is 1956. He heard the Rebbe's words. This is decades later. He married off. He's an older man. He married off all his children. I want to tell you, my friends, that night by the wedding, he danced with a happy heart, with a whole heart. Not with a hole in his heart, with a whole heart. He was completely besimcha, but not just because he had the money to pay for the bills. That's not the reason for his real simcha. The reason is because this is a Yid that by him was nasasov and nasate be'emunah. He knew what it means to live your life with emunah. He had this principle of emunah that guided him throughout his life. And in his moment of uncertainty, he was strong. He felt like the Rabbi Shalom was dancing with him at that wedding, holding his hand with his son's hand. He saw what it means, nasasov and nasate be'emunah. When a Yid has emunah, the Eibishter pulls through. When a Yid is a maimin, emunah is real. I want to tell you, my friends, last night I was in Far Rockaway. I was speaking in Far Rockaway. And because I was in Far Rockaway, I was reminded of a story which I shared with them. The people in Far Rockaway know this story. Many of them. There was a Jew after the war. There was a Jew who survived the war and was in a DP camp. The people always talk about tragedies that happen. But then there's the tragedy after the tragedy, that is already not newsworthy. When there's a huge wildfire, everybody knows about it. But when people go home after the fire to the devastation, trying to rebuild their shattered lives, that's already not in the headlines. That's very private and individualized. The war everybody knows about. But the DP camps, what they went through, this was a Yid in the DP camp. He wanted a sefer. He heard that there's a Gniza in Munich, Germany. There's a Gniza full of Svarim, Shemus, with some Svarim. When they rounded up the Jews, there was Shemus that fell, there were Svarim. And somebody went and put them all in a house, in an old attic, in a loft, dumped. You know, over here, they collect the Shemus before Pesach. They separate the Svarim, and they throw out the Shemus and bury it. And the Svarim they resell in the used bookstores, yeah? But there was a lot of Shemus with Svarim. They had the basic Svarim. But he decided, let him go see, maybe he'll find a sefer, maybe he'll find something. So he went to Munich from the Deeping camp, this young man, his name was Shmuel Rubin. And he went there and he found a beautiful sefer, a whole sefer, the famous sefer, the Me'orei Nayim, from the classic Sifrei Chassidus, fundamental Svarim of Chassidus, the Me'orei Nayim from the Chernobyl, from the Holy Chernobyl. He found the Me'orei Nayim. And he was there going to take it. There was another Jew there sifting through the Shemus, also looking for Svarim, who said to him, I can't believe you found the Me'orei Nayim. It will mean the world to me if you give me the Me'orei Nayim. I'm a ben achar ben from the Chernobyl. I have nothing. Everything was lost. Everything was taken away. Everything was destroyed. There's nothing left. There's no continuity. The kehillah, the family, the lineage. If this Me'orei Nayim will give me the chizuk I need, it will give me the strength to carry through, could I have the Me'orei Nayim? He said, okay, sure. How can he tell a Jew no? He gave the Me'orei Nayim, and in place, the Jew in the Gniza Munich handed Shmuel Rubin a siddur. You know, the Alter Rebbe, the Maggid told the Alter Rebbe, the Mezritcher Maggid, who's Yartzeit, his Yutas Kislev today, told the Alter Rebbe to write a Shulchan Aruch, which is the Shulchan Aruch Harav. He also told him to write a siddur. The Shulchan Aruch was to write halachas b'taimeyan, because amongst the many poskim, there's many machlokes in the Shulchan Aruch, and he wanted him to be machriya, to be a deciding factor, to decide between the poskim halacha l'maisa. But when it came to the siddur, when it comes to the siddur also, there were so many siddurim, and every siddurim used to be handwritten generations before. And over time, publishers, everyone changed the nusach a little bit. Even today, between siddur and siddur, there's various differences. And there are so many nuschos and so many different ways to daven. He said, I want you to take all the siddurim and be machriya. You have the koyach. Decide. Make a siddur that's good for everybody. A shara koilo. A siddur al pi nusach harizal, which will be mechuven, grammatically correct. Mechuven according to the kavanis of the Rizal, without putting in kavanis. In other words, a siddur that's shavel chol nefesh, a siddur that anybody can use, not a kabbalistic siddur, but at the same time the words should be, if a Bekubal was davening, according to the correct kavanis, how would he pronounce the words? That's how the words should be pronounced. At the same time, it should be grammatically correct, etc., etc. Make a siddur. The Alter Rebbe made a siddur. The Alter Rebbe siddur. Today it has different names, Torah, Patilas Hashem. That's just the names the publishers gave. But the siddur is the Alter Rebbe siddur. The Jew said, thank you so much for the Me'orei Nayim. Let me give you what I found. He handed him the siddur, the Alter Rebbe siddur. The Alter Rebbe's nusach. What they had then in Europe. So Shmuel Rubin went back to the DP camp with the Alter Rebbe's siddur. Eventually he got a visa to come to America. These Jews lost everything. They came with the shirts on the back. Shmuel Rubin came with the shirt on the back and the siddur that he exchanged for Me'orei Nayim in Munich, Germany, in Agniza, looking through Shemus, looking for something when they were in a DP camp. These Jews came to America broken, impoverished, to rebuild their lives. Initially, they davened, many of them. They would gather in homes, Shabbos, to daven, make minyanim. But some time went by, and the people decided we can't live this way forever. We need to rebuild. The past is the past, as painful as it is, but there's also a future. We need to remarry. We need to have children. We need to create shuls. We need to create schools. Yiddishkeit goes on. The Eibusher wanted us to survive. The miracles happen to us. We need to create a future. We need to build a shul. We can't just daven in homes. In Europe, we had beautiful shuls. Shtiblach, Botei Midrashes. We need to rebuild. And they decided they're going to build a shul. My friends, there was one problem. You know what the problem was? They had no money. They were poor people. How do you build a shul without money? How do you build a kehillah without money? So this question, there is no good answer. You until today are trying to figure it out. Yeah. How do you build? They built with emunah. They figured like this. They figured you go tell people we're building. Who are you? You're a schlepper, a shlemazel. You have no Allah Yitzchak. What do you mean you're building? Why would anyone give you money? We're going to start building. You hire the contractor. You dig a hole in the ground. The first thing is you break, you dig, you make a hole, you meklap, mahak. And people see there's something happening, there's movement. You know, that's very inspiring. It gives a person a lot of faith in the future. It makes a person very hopeful. And then people will put money where their hope is. They will be optimistic, and they will scrape together whatever pennies they can from this one, from that one, from that one. And Mirz Hashem, with their optimism, with their hope, with their emunah, with their munascha baleilos, when they have no money, will be able to build a kehillah. My friends, it was a beautiful plan on paper. It was a beautiful plan. This Shmuel Reuben became the Rav, the spearheader, the head of this Chabura, now became Reb Shmuel Reuben. The people there decided they're going to build, and the contractors built, and the building went up, and they tried to collect the money. But you know, it was a plan on paper. In real life never works according to the paper. The building was built, but the money never came in. The poor Yidden, Nebuch had no money, and they couldn't scrape together the money. So what happens when a shul is built without money? What happens? There's different versions. One, I'm from Toronto. There was a shul such Yidden built years ago. It's a very old shul. And they didn't know Chachmas. Yidden came from Europe, Farzaitische Yidden. They built a shul, permits, shmermits. They don't know what a permit is. What does that mean? But one day an inspector came to see the shul. The Yidden said, "Our goy is coming into our shul." The old man picked up his cane. He started screaming, "Anti-Semit, anti-Semit." He chased the inspector out of the shul. They never came back. I'm telling you, the shul is standing till today. They never came back. What do you do? There's no money in the shul. What do you do? What do you do? There's nothing you can do. This was a Thursday night. The contractor told them, the Puerto Ricans, Italians, they told them the following. They said, "Our dear brothers, for the longest time we've had patience. We've tried everything we can. We bend over backwards. Every time they came over to the Yidden, they start mumbling in Yiddish, Mirz Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Gesundheit, Baruch Aleinu." They don't know what they're talking about. You'd ask a man for money, he starts mumbling in Jewish. They said, "This is Adkan. No longer, no more, this nonsense. We put up this shul, we are going to take down this shul. We built it with our hands, we will destroy it with our hands. There's no lawyers, there's no court cases, none of this. We put it up, we're taking it down. We're giving you a weekend, one weekend. If by Monday morning you don't come up with a plan, how you're planning to pay down the money, how you're planning to pay down what you owe us, Monday morning we're bringing the excavator and we're destroying the shul. It's done. Don't call us. Don't call us anymore. There's nothing to talk about anymore." I want to tell you, my friends, these were Yidden. Unlike ourselves. They saw shuls being destroyed with their own eyes. They lived in America for a few years already, but the smell of the shuls being burnt with the Sifrei Torah, sometimes with Yidden in it, sometimes with Yidden outside it, that is a smell they never forgot. Here in America, the land of the free and the brave, from sea to shining sea, where if you dream it, you can build it. In America, the great America, over here there's a Gentile telling them that in 3 days the shul is going to be destroyed, razed to the ground. It's true, it's about money. But how could it be that money should impede a shul? A Mikdash Ma'at. It was so painful for them. It was post-traumatic stress disorder, reliving the hell that they went through once again, this time in New York City. You know, they had a meeting. The Gaboim, the Kehillah, with the Rav, Reb Shmuel Reuben. And he told them the following. Before Shabbos, he told them the following. He said, "Moirav Rabbi said, my brothers, my dear brothers." He says, in hindsight, looking back, should we have built this shul? Everybody knows what Chazal say in Soimchen al Nes. You can't rely completely on a Nes l'mayla b'derech hateba. It was the wrong thing to do. We shouldn't have done it. But now that we did it, everybody here in this room knows we built this shul for one reason and one reason only. So the Rabbi Shalom should have a place where his Shechina can dwell here in our Kehillas. So we can have a place to bring our children to shul. So we can rebuild Yiddishkeit in our Kehillas. So we could live not just with the pain of the past, but look forward to our future. We built it for the Eibishter, for no other reason. Nobody built this shul for pride, for vanity, for ego, for any agenda, for any interest. Everybody here did this l'shem shamayim. This shul was built for the Eibishter, and right now it is in the Rabbi Shalom's hands. If the Rabbi Shalom wants us to have a shul, no matter what the builders say, the Eibishter, who's a kol yochel, that runs the world and sustains the world for close to 6,000 years, who took us, every one of us, an Eid Mutzel Meish, who plucked us out of the Gehenim and the fires, literally, and transported us here. The Eibishter that can do that, if he wants us to have a shul, we'll have a shul also. Somehow, it's in his hands. It's nothing we can do, it's in his hands. If, for whatever reason, the Rebbeinu Shalom has decided to reject our carbon, he doesn't want our shul. We brought it l'shem shamayim, l'shmoyes barach. But we don't know. Kvod elikim hasta davar, hanistoris l'shem elikeinu. If the Eibishter says he doesn't want our shul, nothing we would have done would have made a difference. We wouldn't have a shul. And we won't have a shul. Hakol bidei shamayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven. There's nothing we can do at this time that will make any difference. It's in the Eibishter's hands. What does a Yid have? Lahagid ba'boiker chazdecho. But ve'emunas chabalelis, we have our emunah. Our emunah that hakol bidei shamayim. The emunah with which a Yid is born and with which a Yid dies. The emunah that every impediment, every challenge, and every joy is all from the Eibishter. And that was how they went into this Shabbos, what they knew in their hearts of hearts, the most painful Shabbos. The last Shabbos they're going to daven in their newly built shul that was built with neshama alone, with Mesiras Nefesh. You know, Rab Shmuel Rubin, the Rav, had in the shul a siddur that he brought with him on the boat, that he had in the DP camp, that he exchanged in a gniza in an attic in Munich, Germany. Ma'ori Naim for a Chernobyl Enikel for this siddur. Astalter Rebbe siddur, the siddur of the Balatanya, the Nusach Harpi Arizal, the Nusach HaKoil, the Maggid told him to write. So you didn't have a proper Nusach to daven. That's a Nusach HaKoil, all Yidden can daven. There was a family in that shul that was connected to Lubavitch, the Bistritsky family. Motel Bistritsky came into Shul Shabbos morning, and as he often did with his little baby, Label Bistritsky, all of a sudden holding his baby in his hand, his little child, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and as he always did, he'd go over to Shmuel Rubin, who handed him his siddur. It was his siddur, that's what he came to America with. And he would use that siddur because that was the nusach he davened. And this Shabbos, he took this as he came in, and Reb Shmuel Rubin handed him the siddur. Somehow, with the baby in one hand and taking the siddur with the other hand, he dropped the siddur. The siddur fell with a thud, and the entire siddur fell apart, split. He bent down to pick it up, and as he picked it up, $100 bills started to fall out of his hands. He didn't understand where the money's coming from initially, until he realized after a moment, it was falling out of the binding of the siddur. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Let me just explain to you, my friends. When you were a person in Europe and had something illegal papers, illegal documents, something that the government considered contraband, an illegal currency, where did you hide it? They used to search the homes. The only place that you thought to hide it was in the binding, because they didn't break the bindings, they would sift through it. There was some Jew who must have hid money in the binding. Rabbi said, this is in the 1940s, early 1950s. There was $1,300 in the siddur. Money none of them had. None of them knew where to even get from. An unimaginable sum of money to have cash. Crisp $100 bills that fell out of the siddur. Monday morning they paid off the workers. And the shul stands until today in Far Rockaway. Reb Shmuel Shmelk Rubin, the Solitzer Rav. This is his shul. So I want to tell you. Ashgacha pratis. You know, I told this story about 7 years ago, 5 or 7 years ago. And a person called me after a week. He says, I have to tell you, I have to ask you Mechila, and I have to tell you something. I didn't recognize who the person is. He says, you said this story Shabbos and Shul, and I have to ask you Mechila because in the middle of I kept on interrupting you and asking you where the Shul is, what's the... I said I didn't notice, I didn't pay attention. He says, I have to tell you, I'm ois mensch for a week already. I can't calm down. He says, do you know you said this story Shabbos? Sunday morning, I went to this shul, and I went over to the Rav. I knew a Rabbi Reuben. I grew up in a shul with Rabbi Reuben. And I went over to him and I said, Shabbos, I heard a story about a shul with Rabbi Reuben. Do you know such a story? Is it you? Is that shul? And the Rav answered me, yeah, it's me. It's this shul. It didn't happen to my father. It happened to me. He tells me the Rav is 89 years old. The Rav, parenthetically, passed away a few months after this incident that the person went over to him when I said it. That's why I say 5-7 years ago. Lerech. He tells me, you don't understand what this story means for me. I can't calm down. He said, I grew up in that shul. I had my bar mitzvah in this shul. With the person telling me the story is living in Crown Heights. He says, I live in Crown Heights. I married a Lubavitcher girl. At one point, I became connected to Lubavitch. And I'm always torn inside. Who's the real me? Where do I belong? Am I a boy from the Solitzer Beis Medrash, the Solitzer Shtibel? Rabbi Shmuel Shmelk's boys, who happens to be now amongst Lubavitch. Am I a Lubavitcher who happened to grow up in the Solitzer Beis Medrash? He says, I'm constantly torn. Who's the real me? And if you ask, what's the difference? I don't know. But you know, every person has their complication. That to somebody else says, I don't understand what your hang-up is. What's the problem to be here and there? But for some reason, he never said, am I a chassid? Am I a Jew who now is a chassid? Am I a Jew who's just conveniently now amongst chassidim? Who am I? Here, there. He says, you know, I went to the Rav, the Solitzer Rav, and I asked him about the story, and he told me it happened to me. He says, you don't understand. I realized the trajectory of my entire life. I was raised and grew up in a shul. The only reason that there's a shul is because some Lubavitcher chassid, some follower, Talmud chassid of the Baal Tanya, who davened his nusach, must have been a gvir. What happened to him? What happened to the other 6 million? Hashem yinkem damam. But v'emunoscha ba'leilos, ma'Hashem etzadik ever kainonu. The whole reason for the shul that I had a place to grow up is through this story of this chassid, this siddur, the Alter Rebbe siddur, that was exchanged for Amari Naim. He says, who am I? My whole life I'm torn for so many years. Am I this? Am I that? There's no this and that. It's one person, one wholesome person. There's no contradiction. There's no stira. Sometimes we convince ourselves. We create our own issues, and then we get stuck on them. He says it's one story. The shul was built through the Alter Rebbe's siddur, and when I grew up, eventually I started to learn the Alter Rebbe's Torah. It's one person. There's no contradiction. Imagine Ma'Hashem Etzadik Ever, how the Eibishter Mesabe Basibas and his Megalgal to over here that the Shabbos they needed, punk, the money would be there. The Alter Rebbe's Torah, the Baal Tanya's Torah, it is an incredible Torah that's unique. I want to tell you something, my friends. It is so unique. It's not a Torah for one type of person. When people learn the Alter Rebbe's Torah, you know, there are so many svarim that are based on the Baal Tanya's Torah. For example, I just want to say Sfas Emes, for example. People learn Sfas Emes. There's so much of Sfas Emes that's built and sourced in the Baal Tanya. When you learn the Alter Rebbe's Torah, besides the Alter Rebbe's Torah, you suddenly start to understand so many other Svarim. There are so many Sifrei Machshava, Sifrei Musar, Svarim of Chayvis Halavavis, other Svarim that were written, other Sifrei Chassidus. You learn the Alter Rebbe's Torah. It is such a great light. Everything changes. Emunah changes. Yiddishkeit changes. Bitochen changes. But not only that, you begin to learn other svarim and you say, this is what the mechaber means. This is what it means over here. This is what it means. It changes people. The whole Yiddishkeit becomes changed. Everything becomes deeper. Everything becomes more alive. Everything becomes different. I want to tell you, Chaim. And we'll sing Anigan, and then we'll continue. My friends, we have a great schus to gather here on the Alter Rebbe's Simcha. Imagine the Alter Rebbe sitting, the Balatanya sitting. He says, so many years passed, more than 200 and something years. World wars. People that have been displaced, come from here, come from there. Went through here, went through that. The different roots of people's lives. And yet, we're all here. We all have the schus to be here. To be mischamim to His great light. And that's a tremendous schus. L'chaim, my friends. We should continue to be nischamim lo'iroi. L'chaim. Baruch Tia, Zagazan. Aleichem Shalom.
It's once in the
They can't read, no, the other Zach is...
Nafshi mikravli Asherei Galib Rois Lamoy, Asherei Galib Rois Lamoy, Velayar, Eloy Gib, Velayar, Eloy Gib, Yishmagel Yaneh, V'yayzegedem Zelo, Yishmagel Yaneh, V'yayzegedem Zelo, Asherei Galib Rois Lamoy, Asherei Galib Rois Lamoy, Velayaro Eloike, Velayaro Eloike, Shalayada Vishlayimai, Chilei Verizai, Chaldim Agmois, Bivigav Liboi, Rakudavam Vishem, Benei Moim, Shlichoi, Azleg, Allah Shem Yehavkov, Yechal Gelecha, Lo Yiten Le'yoy Lamoid Latadeh, Moid Latadeh, V'yata Eloki, Toiri Dev Nevei Shachar, V'yata Eloki, Toiri Dev Nevei Shachar, Zanje Lome, Yomima, Loi, Yektu, Mayem, Lame,
From the bottle that I got from the Rabbi. I didn't sell the bottle.
Chaim. Kol doide 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 Thank you. Ta-la-lam. Oh, you know. La 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 la. Kei b'kodesh chazi secha lirai soscha uchvaydecha. Kei b'kodesh chazi secha lirai soscha uchvaydecha. Kei b'kodesh chazi secha lirai soscha uchvaydecha. Deri ama ma 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 ama ma 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 la 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 la. Deri ama ma deri ama ma 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 la 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 la. Tzamalecha nafshi kamalecha b'sari b'yaretz yoveh oye belim oyim diri la 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 ama ma 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 da la 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 ma 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 diri ma 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 la 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 ma 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 ma. I want to tell you, my friends, there was a Jew in business who invested all his money in fur. He bought fur in the summer because you know how it is, being that if you can do something tomorrow, why do it today? People, as soon as it gets cold, they go buy furs. When do you buy a scarf, gloves? When it gets cold. You don't buy it before. So what happens when everybody goes and buys it? Supply and demand. There's a big demand. This price goes up. So he invested money in the summer when the price of fur was down, knowing that as soon as the first cold comes, that's when people buy their furs. And as it gets colder and colder, the prices go up. And he's going to sell warehouses full of fur. He bought it low, sell it high, and make his money. The problem was, it was an extremely warm winter. And there was no demand for fur. Not only the prices didn't go up, there was a, what do they call, a glut. There were warehouses, people were stuck with furs. They didn't know how to get rid of the furs. The prices didn't go up, they went down, it fell. In the Erderein. And he was on Gahak Tetzaris. What do? He's waiting, he says, no, a little snow, a little ice, something. Garnished. Zerukta, nothing. And he really was despondent, and he knew that this is it, it's his moment of truth. He's facing complete and utter financial ruin. It was a devastating financial blow because of the size of his investment. So what does a chassid do when he has a problem that he has no way out? You go to a Rebbe. He traveled to his Rebbe, Reb Meir of Premishlan. He goes to the Rebbe to ask for an Eitzah, what to do. Being that today we don't have an Urim V'Tumim, the Beis HaMikdash, there was an Urim V'Tumim that told Yid what to do. But today you go to a Rebbe to ask him for an Eitzah. He's been davening the entire time, every day in Baruch Aleinu, having Kavanah, Baruch Aleinu, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashana Azois. Usually people daven it should be warm. He would daven it should be cold. By Shmak Aleinu, by Yularatzin, he Pasha didn't know what to do anymore. What do? You daven, but what do you do? So he went to his Rebbe. And he asked Reb Meir of Premishlan what to do. The holy tzaddik, Reb Meir of Premishlan. Reb Meir heard his tzara, and Reb Meir told him the following. He said, you should go home, make a big party, make a big suda, and then everything will be all right. He's thinking he needs the weather to become cold. He needs the prices to go up. What does a Suda have to do with it? What does eating have to do with it? But Chassidim have emunas chachamim, emunas tzadikim. They have emunah in general. When a Yid is a maimin, a noisav and noisim b'emunah, then he believes in tzadikim also. Because tzadikim are close to the Rabbeinu Shalom. So the emunah envelops them. Vayaminu b'Hashem uv Moshe Avdoi. When a Yid goes to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not a lack of emunah. He goes to Moshe because he knows Moshe is an Ishalikim. It's greater emunah. The one who doesn't go is because he says, what does the tzaddik know? What is this? His davening, my davening, it's all the same. It doesn't come from emunah. He goes and he listened to what his Rebbe said. He accepted it. And he made a big suda. He made a big suda. And he had a Yeshua, he had a mess. The prices went up. He was able to sell all his merchandise. And he was a saved man. He traveled back to Reb Meir to thank him for the Eitzah and to also tell him that he's stupefied completely on what having a Suda has to do with the price of fur. And he went into his Rebbe and he shared with him. And Reb Meir said, what do you mean? It's a beferish pasuk. It's a pasuk in Tanakh. In fact, it's in Megillas Esther. We say it every Motzei Shabbos in Havdalah. La Yehudim Hoysa Oira. When a Yid has oir, leather, what does the pasuk say? Simcha v'sasen, and he goes home and he rejoices. He's misameach. You make a suda, you say l'chaim. Vayikar, yoiker becomes expensive. The price goes up. What are you asking me? What does it have to do? You've been saying it your whole life for Havdalah. When you have leather and the price is not good enough to sell it, and you're going to lose your money, v'sasen v'simcha vayikar. Be happy, be misameach, and it will go up. The chassid is looking at his Rebbe and he can't believe it. He can't believe this is what he hears from the world-renowned tzaddik, Reb Meir Premishlan. He says, Rebbe, he can't contain himself. You know, you're not osir lahar achir Rabba. He can't contain himself. He says, Rebbe, La Yehudim Hoysa Oira is spelled with an aleph.
Not with the eye.
Not with an eye.
Leather is with an ayin. Oir and Oira. What does one have to do with the other? La Yehudim Oisa Oira means La Yehudim, by the nest of Purim. La Yehudim Oisa Oira, v'simcha, v'sachen. They had light. He says, we're talking about leather. Oira. Oir. Leather. Rameh looked at him like, calm down. I also know how to read the Siddur. He says, and he quotes him the Gemara. Reb Meir says, the Gemara says, B'sifrei Torah shel Reb Meir hayakosuv kosnos oir with an aleph. Wow. The Gemara says, B'sifrei Torah shel Reb Meir in Bereshis by Adam Rishon it talks about kosnos oir, garments of leather, right? Covering of leather, kosnos oir. And the Gemara says, how do you spell oir in Bereshis? There's two versions. Normally, oir is spelled with an ayin. B'sifrei Torah shel Reb Meir hayakosuv kosnos oir ba'alef. No, he's Reb Meir. You're asking Reb Meir Premishlan, the Rebbe Reb Meir, what an oir has to do. An oir with an ayin, an oir with an aleph is not a big kasha. It works. It works because you had the Yeshua. That's what the Meir answered him. You know, it's an amazing thing. B'sifrei Torah shel Reb Meir hayakosuv kosnos oirim aleph. Oir is leather, skin. It's something that blocks, that impedes light. When you have the light of the sun, and you have a glass, everybody puts glass in their homes, because glass lets the light through. If you put leather with an ayin, not an aleph, you tell the contractor, tasim or, but he doesn't know, you put leather, the light doesn't go through. But you know what? The warmth still can come through. The warmth can come through. But the great tzaddikim said that the light of Chassidus, that the Baal Shem Tov brought to the world, is such a profound light. The Oir Atzmi of Chassidus is such a light that even Oir with a leather, this light, unlike the light of the sun, can permeate the leather, can go through the leather. The leather is not a barrier. B'sifrei Torah shel Reb Meir hayakosuv kosnos oir with an aleph. And I thought, B'sifrei Torah shel Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir, a Rebbe was leicht. A Rebbe that gives off light. That's what a Rebbe is. It's a light. It's an Or Atzmi. If you go to a Rebbe, if you've seen the Rebbe, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It's a light that even the greatest darkness can impede. Rabbi Meir says, Rabbi Meir, when there's a Rebbe that shines, a Rebbe that's a Moshe Rabbeinu, a Rebbe that's a Rambam. You know Davnei Nezer. Davnei Nezer used to walk in the streets with his eyes closed. There was a certain city in Poland, Davnei Nezer, Godel Merabin Shmoy, in his time, the Gedol Ador. Who didn't know Davnei Nezer? Till today, Davnei Nezer. The greatest Gedolim of the last centuries. Davnei Nezer had a certain house, a Balachsania, where he would stay every time he came to the city. And normally he would let them know in advance that he's coming, and there was a chassid who had the schus and the kavod to host the Rebbe, the great tzaddik Davnei Nezer, every time. There was one time Davnei Nezer came without foretelling him. He happened to show up, he didn't have a chance to tell him. And the chassid is at home, and somebody says, I think the Rebbe is coming, there's a whole wagon, a whole entourage. He says, it can't be, I always know ahead of time to prepare. But he went out, it turned out it was his Rebbe Davnei Nezer. And Davnei Nezer, being that he would walk outside with his eyes closed, the holy tzaddik, the chassid took his hand and he stuck it in the hand of the Nezer to walk him, together with another Jew who walked him from the other side. And as he's walking Davnei Nezer into his house, he realizes, he says, Oy, oy the Jew bought that day or the day before a picture of the Balatanya. You know, there's only one picture, it's a painting of the Balatanya, one image of the Balatanya. And he bought it. And it was sitting in his dining room. And he knew that Davnei Nezer, like many tzaddikim, were very makbid in homes. There shouldn't be any pictures, any tziyurim. This was akbada. He said, I can't have it in the house. My Rebbe holds you can't have a picture in the house. He didn't realize the Rebbe is coming, he just bought it. So he let go of Davnei Nezer. His son was there. He told his son, put your hand, quickly. I'm going to take out my hand, put your hand in. The Rebbe's eyes are closed. He ran into the house. He grabbed the picture. In the bahal of the moment, he didn't even know what to do. He stuck it in his kapat, in his rekel. He stuck it in his jacket, and that's how he ran back outside to help the Rebbe come into the house. The Rebbe was already walking in. Davnei Nezer, even though his eyes were closed, he realized that person left go, came back. He sensed what happened, and he was already in the house. He looked at the chassid. He said, "What just happened? What's this bahal like running and coming?" And the chassid tried to. He was very uncomfortable. But the Davnei Nezer said, "Tell me, what is it?" And he told the Rebbe. He said, "I'll tell you. I know the Rebbe is makbid. I didn't have a chance. I didn't know the Rebbe is coming. I'm so sorry. I know the Rebbe is terribly makbid not to walk into a house that has pictures. And I have a picture of the Balatanya. And I ran out of the kavod for the Rebbe to remove it." And Davnei Nezer said, "Bring her. I want to see the picture." And he put out the picture. Davnei Nezer gazed at the picture for a few moments, gazed at it intently, and then he took his hand and he caressed the picture. And he said the following words, and I'll translate. He said, Irzeh, Irzeh, Ichob reine Eugen, Irzeh, Ke Rambam bedoiroi zicher, Efsher vi Moshe Rabbeinu bedoiroi. These are the words of Davnei Nezer. I see, I have pure eyes, the eyes of a tzaddik. I see. Like the Rambam in his generation for sure. Maybe like Moshe Rabbeinu. These were his words. You know, I mentioned parenthetically, the Alter Rebbe wanted to visit the Vilna Gaon at the height of the Machloikis, because he thought that if he'll meet with him, there'll be reconciliation. He'll explain away the misinformation that the Vilna Gaon heard, the tightness against the Balatanya, and he'll realize that there's no avla, and everything is good. But when the Alter Rebbe came to the Vilna Gaon's house, where he was staying in the attic, the Vilna Gaon ran away. He jumped out the window. He escaped. He didn't meet with him. But the way they said over the story, not by the Chassidim, by the Misnagdim, that the Vilna Gaon saw through the crack in the door the Alter Rebbe's face. This is how they said over the story by the descendants of the Reb Chaim Volozhiner. He said he saw the Alter Rebbe's face through the crack in the door, and he was so smitten by what he saw. The ponim, the hadas ponim, the image of the Alter Rebbe. He felt that if he's going to let him in, he will be influenced, so to speak. He will be taken by the Alter Rebbe. He will be, they're going to walk out hand in hand, spreading chassidus together. And because he was adamantly opposed, he felt, in others, the force of the Alter Rebbe, the renkheit, the toyer of his face, he ran out. You know, there was a Yid, Rabbi Fall Hamburger, the Rav of Hamburg, great Goen, Rabbi Fall of Hamburg. You've heard of him, yeah? Great Goen. Rabbi Fallikan, yeah. Rabbi Fall Hamburger was from the Talmidim, was from the Talmidim of the Vilna Goen. He was from the Talmidim of the Vilna Goen. And the Vilna Goen sent them on a mission to Mizrich to see what's going on by the Maggid. He says, I want you to go tell me Eidos. What's really happening by the Chassidim? He hears Shmuas, he wants to know what's going on. But let me back up a little bit. Why did he end up being the one to go on behalf of the Vilna Goen? You know, why did he end up going on behalf of the Vilna Goen? The story is like this. The Maggid once came out, the Mezitcher Maggid once came out. The Rebbe, the Mezitcher Maggid, whose yahrzeit is today. And he started saying Torah to his Talmidim. He told them a tife pilpul, a profound pilpul. Lumdis, learning. When he finished the pilpul, he turned to one of his Talmidim, Rabbi Yaakov Shimon. Yeah, one of his Talmidim. And he told him, I want you to travel to this and this place. I didn't say anything else. The Talmidim didn't know why he suddenly came out and said that big pilpul, but the Talmud traveled. The Rebbe haste. The Rebbe says to go. He went. He went, and he came to an inn. He said, I need to sleep during the night. The innkeeper said, there are no rooms, there are no vacancies. I'm sorry, I can't help you. There's nowhere to sleep. He said, come on, just give me a bed. He said, there is no bed. He said, there's not even one bed. Maybe there's somebody staying in a room that has two beds. I'll stay in the other bed. And he kept on arguing. He couldn't stay on the road. There was nowhere to stay. Finally, the innkeeper said, I'll tell you, there is a bed. The problem is there's a person staying in the room. And he took the room and he said, I can't let anybody into the room. He has a big thing. He's busy. He can't have anybody disturb him tonight. And this Talmud of the Maggid Rabbi Yaakov Shimon said, I promise I won't disturb. The light could be on. He could be doing his thing. I don't care. I just need a bed. I just need a place to lay. I won't disturb. He said, you know what, if the person lets, he went, he put his Talmud of the Maggid, the innkeeper, in the room. You know who was in the room? Rabbi Fall Hamburger. He was on his way to Hamburg to become the Rav. And it used to be, when you became the Rav of a city, you used to come there, prepare a pilpul, all the Lomdim in the city would sit, would listen, and see if they liked you, if you could learn, see what type of Talmud Chacham you were, and that's how they would test you. He was preparing a pilpul, his pilpul that he was going to say as becoming the Rav, the Av Bezdin of Hamburg. The Talmud of the Maggid, Rabbi Yaakov Shimon, is laying in bed. He said it doesn't matter, he's not going to disturb him. And he hears Hafliv a fella. Rabbi Fall Hamburg is preparing the pilpul, the same sugya he just heard from the Maggid. He can't believe it. And he's listening in bed. He says, this is very interesting. I mean, the Maggid just sent me, and here he is. Talmud of the Vilna Goen, who happens to be in the same room. Talmud of the Maggid, Talmud of the And Rabbi Fall Hamburg finishes the sugya, and he realizes, when the Maggid said it, he didn't stop where this Talmud stopped. He asked a question that slugged up the whole thing, and then he gave a new biur on the whole sugya. So from the bed, suddenly he calls out, he's supposedly sleeping, to Rabbi Fall Hamburger. He says, 1 second, this is doch schwer, the Rambam, the Rishonim, there's another gis in the Gemara. Then Rabbi Fall Hamburger, well, what's a baskol? Baskol is usually min ha-shamayim, here's min ha-mita. He sees, and he starts to sit there, because it was such a strong question that was going to slug up the whole pilpul. and he was stumped. He started to sweat. He started to sweat because he was going to become Dav Bezdin. Tomorrow the Lamdim are going to ask him this question. He doesn't have an answer. He prepared the whole sugya. And after a few minutes, they're talking. That Rabbi Yaakov Shimon, the Talmud of the Maggid, says, there's another way of learning Pshat. He says, what? He says, I'm not telling you. He says, what do you mean you're not telling me? He says, I'm not telling you. He just heard it from the Maggid. The whole thing. He realized this was a mission that he was sent on. The Maggid sent him here. He begged him, tell me. He says, I'll tell you, b'tnai, if you promise me. He told him, full hamburger, the Talmud of the Goyim, I will tell it to you b'tnai that you come to the Rebbe in Mezrich. He promised because he needed the answer. And he told him the pilpul, and he went back to Mezrich. He realized he did a shlichus. This is why the Maggid said the pilpul, and he went on to Hamburg. But he promised that he'd go to Mezrich. But the full hamburger felt it's only right before he goes to go to his Rebbe, the Vilna Gaon. After all, the Vilna Gaon was Mesnagit Chassidus. It's his Rebbe Muvak. He has to go to his Rebbe and tell him what he's going to do. And he went to the Vilna Gaon, he told him the story. He said, I'm going to go to Mezrich. And that's when the Vilna Gaon gave him a shlichus. He says, you're going, I want you to go, and I want you to find out the following 3 questions I have on Chassidim and Chassidus. And I want you to come back to Vilna and tell me the answer. First of all, I heard that they are mizalzel Talmidei Chachamim. Is it true? Because if they're mizalzel Talmidei Chachamim, then it's not emes, it's sheker, it's not the path of Torah. There's no kavod for Talmidei Chachamim Torah. The Gemara says, Kamet Tipshi Inshi, famous Gemara, how people are so foolish. They stand up before a Sefer Torah and they don't stand up before Talmidei Chachamim. A Talmid Chacham is a lebedik Sefer Torah. You're mezalzel on the Talmid Chacham. If you mock a Talmid Chacham, you disrespect a Talmid Chacham. You're not disrespecting a person. You're disrespecting the Torah in him. You're being mezalzel on the Eibishter, who's the noise in the Torah. He says, I want you to find out if it's true what they say that Chassidim are mezalzel on Talmidei Chachamim. Number 2, they say that Bechlal the Chassidim are empty people. They know how to drink and sing and dance, but they're Amaratzim. Is it true? Are they Amaratzim Talmidei Chacham? I want to know firsthand. And number 3, they say in the streets that in the Beis Medrash of Chassidim there's Ruach HaKodesh that rolls, there's Mizgalgal, there's plenty of Ruach HaKodesh. Is it true? And I want you to do me a favor. Go there, find out all 3 things, come back, but I don't want to hear your opinions. I just the eidos, no opinions. Just straight, answer the questions. And Rabbi Fall of Hamburg set out to Mezrich, to the Beis Medrash of the Maggid. And he came there, nobody knew who he was. He was an anonymous person. How did they know who he is in Mezrich? And he sat in the back. The poor people used to sit by the ovens that used to heat the Beis Medrash. He went over there in the back with the poor people. And he sat there anonymously. And suddenly he sees the Maggid coming out. Together with his Talmidim, the Chevrai Kadisha. And there was a shaila in Yerodea. There was a shaila about a sirche. There was a shaila if there's an animal that's kosher or treif. The Maggid asked the Talmidim, he says, I want you to tell me your opinion in this halacha, in this shaila. How do you paskin? He asked the group of Talmidim. And he saw the Talmidim. Everyone started to give an answer. A pilpul with the sugya, Shulchan Aruch, the poskim, the gemaras. And he saw that they knew what they were talking about. These were not Amiratzim. These were Gedoylei Yisrael. These were giants. Talmidei Chachamim. Well, that was the answer to his first question that the Vilna Gaon asked him to get back to him. When all the Talmidim finished answering, the Maggid, now was the Maggid's turn to talk. And the Maggid began to answer himself. And he began to go through the whole Noisa. And he explained it in a whole new way, the Shaila, all the Tzadim of the Shaila, and all the different shittas in the Shaila. With a tremendous pilpul, a tremendous oimek, shaloi lefi erech de Talmidim. And when the Maggid finished and was machriya, In this noise, in this shaila, the Maggid then began to explain the whole shaila pikabola. Beruchnis in yonim, lamaila, the lamas al yonim, and the spheres. And you know, when the Maggid spoke, the Talmidim stood before the Maggid, trembling, the way the Yidden stood by Matan Torah. Like it says, Bereses bezeya be'ema be'yira beresu bezeya. Such covet. Not sometimes a Rebbe speaks at Talmud Rosh Hashiva, and the Talmud says, yeah, it's there, but I also have an opinion. With such bittul, such hadis covet, that's mamish like shchinim and the beres mitar groiner, like they're receiving Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu. He's never seen anything like it. You know, usually there's you, there's me. Such a derech eretz. Ad kedei kach. Bittul. They were themselves giants. He saw their own goyness a few minutes before. He himself was a goyn. He knew how to measure. And to see such tremendous goynim be mevatel themselves completely before the Rebbe, such a covet Torah. Such a covet for a Talmud Chacham, a Rebbe that he never saw. That was the second question. And you know, the Maggid finished speaking the sugya, and the Maggid suddenly said to Talmidim, you know, what do we need to stand here and be mefapul? If the Rav of Hamburg is here in the Beis Medrash, what do we need to sit and say Adea? He turned around to Rav and he says, no, the Hamburg Rav, come on. And that was the third question. Did the Chassidim have Ruach HaKodesh? Rabbi Fall Hamburger did not become a Chassid. He was a great Rav. But he was taken because when you see MS, I mentioned earlier, Kshoit, Chochet versteht. When you see MS, the Gemara says, Nikorim divrei MS. A person speaks truth, it's recognizable. He went back to the Vilna Gaon. I want to tell you something. The Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon, you know, the Vilna Gaon signed the Cherem against Chassidus. This was a Maaseh Satan. Later on was Nizbar that the whole thing was a mistake. But at the time, this was the information he had, and that's what he did. You know, when they came to the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon to sign, other Gedolei Yisrael signed also. Rabbi Chaim Volozhner didn't sign, famously. The closest Talmud of the Vilna Gaon didn't sign. But another Talmud who didn't sign was Rabbi Fall Hamburger. They came to him to ask him to sign the Cherem. He refused to sign. They said to him, the Mishlachas, they came, they said, how could you not sign? The Rebbe himself signed. Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud. The Rebbe, you're arguing with the Vilna Gaon. If he's doyim el malach Hashem tzvaka, he's Torah tavakshu mepiu. The Rebbe, the Vilna Gaon, is a malach elikim. A Gaon a chosid mi Vilna. He signed. You have a different day? And he answered them the following. He says, you know, you find something remarkable in Chumash. The end of Parshas Vayera, you have the Akedah. The Akedah is Yitzchak. Avram took Yitzchak. Hashem told Avram, go shecht here, go take him Loila. At the end of the Akedah, there's a malach that tells Avram, what does he tell him? Al tishlach yodcha lanar. Rabbi Fall, how the great Rav Hamburg looked at the mishlachas that were mekadne bekinosh Hashem tzvokos. You have to sign the cherem that the Rebbe signed. He said, I don't understand. You have in Bereshis many times that Hashem sends malachim. If there was a malach available to tell Hashem, Avram, Atishlach Yodcha Lanar, there clearly was. Why didn't the malach also tell him, Kach es bincha es yichidcha, take your son to be an oila? There is a malach in the story now. The malachim were all busy that morning. The Eibusher has to say. But there was a malach. So why didn't the malach tell him? Why did the Rebbeinu Shalom himself have to tell Avram, take his son? If there was a malach there, who at the end said, Hashem didn't tell him, Atishli Yodcha, the malach did. And Rafal Hamburger answered them the following. He said, because when it comes to shechting another Yid, even if a malach tells you to do it, you don't do it. Unless you hear it from the Rebbeinu Shalom himself, you don't shecht another Yid. That's what he told them. In other words, the Rebbe, the Vilna Gaon, is doim el malach Hashem tzvakis. You're asking me here to shecht hakehila, to write off an Eidu Kedoshah mi Yisrael, to write off Yidden, that they're no longer part of our great tradition, unless the Eibusher himself tells me to do that. For this is not enough to hear it from a malach. This Rebbe Fall was a mizrich. That's why he didn't sign. He saw b'moy einov that it wasn't so simple. that there was a machlokes with mechacher eriv, like every machlokes. And it wasn't so pashut, as everybody saw a short time later. And he went back to the Vilna Gaon, and he told the Vilna Gaon, he said, the answer to your questions is, he saw in the Beis Medrash of Chassidim, by the Talmud and Memalamokim of the Baal Shem Tov, whose yahrzeit is today, the holy Maggid of Mezich. He said that they have tremendous darcheres with Talmidei Chachamim. They themselves are royas Talmidei Chachamim. And there is Ruach HaKodesh in their Beis Medrash. It's emes. And then that there is Ruach HaKodesh. And then he did something that his Rebbe told him not to do. He said, their emes from Torah in Mezrich. That's how he finished off. He saw the truth of Torah in Mezrich. The Vilna Gaon said, I told you not to give personal things. Once you have your own thing, it mevatel the whole Eidos. You're now Apostle Eidos. You have over here Adeya. You have to be a pure Eid. He wasn't Mekabel. And tragically, the great tragedy of the Choromim that happened, the great tragedy that escalated after the Vilna Gaon passed away and culminated in the Alter Rebbe being thrown into prison, but of course resulted in the great light of Chassidus when the Gzera was in his battle. He said that emes from Torah is in Mezrich. He saw something. He saw something in Mezrich. You know, somebody, what's harder, to learn a Blat Gemara, to learn a Blat Baba Basra, or to daven Shachris? What's harder? What's harder? To learn a Blat Gemara, to learn a Sugya, to learn Gemara Shitaisus is harder, obviously. But to open the Siddur and daven. What is it? The answer is simple. When you have children in school, what age do the children learn to daven, and when do they learn Gemara? You learn davening first. Yeah. You don't learn Gemara first, then Tosfos, and then finally, when you're ready to be bar mitzvah, they teach you how to daven. It's the other way around. You daven first, and you get older. But half live a fella. The Alter Rebbe said, when he came to a crossroads in his own life, he said he had two paths before him. He can go to Vilna, where there's Torah, or he can go to Mezrich, where there's also Tefillah. He said the following words. He said, Torah, I already know how to learn. I want to go to Mezrich to learn how to daven. So clearly, by the Alter Rebbe, davening is harder than learning. By the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, the Baal Mechaber Shulchan Aruch Rav, he obviously felt that davening is harder than learning. Because learning, he was able to say, I already know. Imagine a child in pre-1A says, I already know how to learn. I'm ready to finish and skip to Mesifta, to Yeshiva Ktana, to learn how to daven. It's backwards. But that's what Alter Rebbe said. Learning, he knows how to learn. Davening, he daven. The Rafal Hamburg said, the emes, there was something, Vilna had Torah. There's no question. But the emes of Torah, there was something he saw in Mezrich that took him. He didn't become a chosid. He was a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon, but it took him. B'sifrei Torah Shrab Meir HaYakasuv Kosnas Oire Im Aleph. This is the emes of Torah. Because there's regular light that goes through glass. Heat can go through leather. But there's an Oir Atzmi of Torah. And this Oir Atzmi of Torah can, even leather doesn't impede. When there's a Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, Achia Shaloini, Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Mag was given to the Magid, and this was given to the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya Shulchan Aruch, and he gave this Oir Atzmi in his Torah. And this is an Oir Atzmi that changes leather kosnos oir that cut off a person into oir, light, that light up a person, that it permeates a person, it transforms a person. A person's a different person. Even when it's difficult, even when it's dark, there's oir, kosnos oir. But even there, with this oir atzmi of emunah, baleilos, even darkness can be transformed to light. And this is what Alter Rebbe gave in his Torah. It's a tremendous Torah. And I implore you, Rabbi Sai, on this Yutas Kislev, this is a time to take on a Kabbalah, to delve into this Torah, to learn this Torah, There are so many svarim of this Torah today. The Chassidus Muvaeres, shiurim, wonderful shiurim. The Torah of the Alter Rebbe changes a person, and it changes everything else they learn. When you learn the Alter Rebbe's Torah, it changes how you learn Gemara also. It changes how you learn a halacha also. It changes everything. My friends, we are very lucky that we are here to partake in this great simcha of the Alter Rebbe, that we can connect our neshamas to this great Rebbe, to this Rabbi Meir, to this Rabbi Meir. Like the Avnei said, like the Rambam for sure, and like a Moshe Rabbeinu maybe. L'chaim, l'chaim.